just say I do.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Behind the Veil, a show that provides insight into the world of people and events. I'm your host, Keith Willard. Welcome back. Today, we're coming from you from down under. Not really. Yeah, we're actually coming to you from Fort Lauderdale. But our guest today is actually coming in from Australia. It's like 6 a.m. there for the live show, and he is the master of ceremonies and one of the best in the industry, and we're really super excited to talk to him. But before I bring him on, let me bring on my co-host, Marcy Gutenberg, with an affair to remember.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi.
How are
So I know that you and I are both busting at the seams because we do have an exclusive with the Knot that's going to be coming out next month. So exciting. More details about that coming up, guys. But let's talk about our guest today, Nathan, right?
Yes.
He's literally dialing in live from Australia. Gotta love technology. Gotta love technology. And he's going to talk to us all about all what he does. And we're going to dive into a whole bunch of different areas, not just weddings, but corporate events, even cruise lines. Why don't we get him on? Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Nathan. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Nathan.
Thank you for having me. It's great. It's you're right. The miracle of technology. Australia has finally got internet here, so it's nice that we're being able to do this. You know, go back a couple of years ago, it was dial-up. You know, all those sounds and stuff.
I forgot about the bulletin boards and all that stuff. That
right, the dial-up. Oh my gosh.
AOL
I just saw something the other day on TV, and they were having that dial-up sound, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't heard that sound in a long time.
It's the sound of my childhood, really, because we didn't get broadband for a little bit longer than you guys did. So we know it's still, millennials in Australia still like, that little ring in the ear,
Oh my God. Well, so Nathan, I want to hear all about you. Let's talk about this because you are masters of ceremonies, and I don't think a lot of people really understand what that means in general. So, obviously start with the wedding portion of it, but then also describe a little bit about the corporate side and the cruise ship part.
Yeah, I know. It's really cool that you guys are you're in Fort Lauderdale right now, because obviously it's been a big part of my life back in the day, going out of Miami. But I'll share a bit more about that later. So essentially, my life has transformed from being a former cruise director with Princess Cruises and now to becoming a master of ceremonies, which seems like a bit of a natural fit. So essentially, a master of ceremonies, for those of you that don't know, is literally that. Break it down: a master of the ceremony. And these ceremonies can be, for instance, a wedding reception all the way to a corporate event such as an awards night or a gala or a festival, or I've done fun runs and marathons and anything where essentially there is a need for an individual to be on the microphone, to be the life, energy and vibe and the entire character of the event.
Right.
And it's often a role that people will think that it's just easily done. Often in weddings, for instance, the going rate, I know, particularly here in Australia, but even sometimes in the States as well, that you guys are much further ahead of us in the weddings and the corporate game. But often it's this idea of, it needs to be somebody that knows the event or knows the couple or is something close to it. But it's like, hang on, you're asking that person to do a real job that 75% of people in the world absolutely hate, which is public speaking. And then they're meant to not only get up there and talk, they're also meant to, carry the night and keep things flowing correctly and manage the time, all of that stuff in between, and also be entertaining. And it's just, it's such a bigger job than what people anticipate.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think people really understand what it takes in order to keep an evening moving along, but you also having to feel the crowd out and figure out what's making them tick. I mean, it's a lot like a band when they're playing music for an audience, and sometimes one vibe is not fitting well, and so they switch what kind of songs that they're doing, and then that hits. I feel like the same thing happens with masters of ceremonies. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why it's really important to, when you are thinking of, when you're putting together a wedding or you're putting together a corporate event, that you really are thinking very carefully about who your MC is going to be. Because I understand there's as I said, this is misconception that it has to be someone that's really close to you because, they're the only people that'll understand me. But I mean, you look at, not to toot my own horn, but you look at, many of the reviews that I have, from my past couples, for instance, and it's very clear that the majority of them have said, specifically, oh, it felt like he knew us for a very long time.
Right.
And the reason is because we're just the kind of people, if you are the right person for the right job, we're the kind of people who, in our element, are the kinds that can really get to know you and translate that in an instant in an audience. So it's there's a lot of things that we do in order to make that possible, about making it look very seamless on stage and so forth. But generally, we don't do this job because we hate it. It's not a job you just pick up and go, okay, I'm just going to do this. It's very much a job of passion. And so we do care about getting to know you and then making sure that your audience feels that as well. So it's surprising actually how much we can get to know you in a short space of time.
I have one of the things that I feel like is a misconception in the industry is that a master of ceremonies is kind of like the way of old DJs used to be, the old radio DJ. And I feel like that's what people remember from the 90s and the 90s, let's say 90s, where you had a masters of ceremonies up there making odd jokes and being like a little over the top and having that big, almost Barnum and Bailey's kind of voice.
Yeah.
And I think things have changed quite a bit. Have they?
Oh, certainly. Yes. Gone are the days are like, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the wedding of the century. Oh my God. Yeah. Totally. Like, I mean, look, don't get me wrong. There's still a lot of people out there that do that.
I was about to say, there's still a bunch of those people that do that, ladies and gentlemen,
they're not millennials, I'll tell you that much. But, you're right. There definitely has been a shift. I mean, if you go back about 20 years ago, a lot of people like myself weren't as common as in like solo MCs. They were usually associated as the DJ, or they were one of the band members, or perhaps they were the venue owner. Back in the day, it was, look, I think the venue owner was actually more or less the quintessential sort of, ancestor of what I do now, I should say, because they were still more independent, but they would also work the room. And a big part of their job and why they're called the Master Ceremonies is that they were meant to, flit around the room, get to know people, chat with everybody, and touch points at every point in turn. Yes, those typical, like back in the day, the corny jokes were there, but they were somebody that was able to just move and float throughout the room effortlessly until they were able to really capture the entire audience's attention. And they were the best ones, as opposed to, those corny DJs and band ones and so forth. But things have definitely changed. I mean, a big trend in the States that I've noticed, that I'm really hoping to bring way more to Australia. We really desperately need this, because DJ MCs, for instance, what I call the slashies, the DJ MC, the celebrant MC, there are, all respect to all the people that I work with, and I work with some absolutely talented, most fantastic people out there. But the slashy concept really, really grinds my gears, because often it's more done now for the concept of money, to say, oh, well, I'll tack on $300, $400, $500, etc., or sometimes more, to do a service that is just purely announcing, versus what I do, which is dynamic entertainment and event management. And so I'm trying to help people understand that the MC niche is so much broader than just simply saying, and now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the bride and groom as they come through the room. There is so much more dynamic nature to the role on a spectrum that means that you have to be someone that can hold your own. Just like I did when I was a cruise director on board, you really had to hold your space. The stage was yours. You had to captivate the audience. And I would argue this, I know it's controversial to some people, you cannot do that from behind a DJ booth. No. And you certainly can't do that bringing the ceremony as a celebrant and then bring it into the reception space by repeating the same things you've said over in the ceremony. One thing I've really noticed in the States is DJs will have, if they are like known as big MCs as well, they will do one thing that we're not doing here, which you're going to appreciate. They will be big time DJs, but they recognize that the MC role is separate. So what they'll do is they'll have a whole team of people with them. And when they got to do, say, for instance, the entrance or big moments where they need to get away from the booth, they have a really other good assistant DJ who will be there to mark those moments for them as well. So they can get away from the booth, do what they have to do, and then come back. For me, I don't mind that as a DJ MC. I think that really shows the care of the fact that you need to be away from the booth when the time comes. But we just don't have that here. There's just not something that's just going on. It's all these condensed sort of jobs that are these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different disciplines put into one. And I think we need to sort of not move in that direction. I think it's getting a little too much.
Well, how do you describe your value to potential clients? I mean, because it's kind of like me as an event planner. I have to explain it as, you know, if you had somebody redoing your house, you had construction crews coming in and tearing everything down and rebuilding, who would you hire? Would you hire somebody that is known and is good at that? Or do you hire some, you know, cheap ass human being that you found on, you know, Reddit or one of those horrible sites? The value has to be explained. So how do you explain the MC value?
Yeah, it's a great question. I explain the way my value is this. I bring, you know, comedic improvisational entertainment to a crowd that is not going to get, I'm going to get to know by the end of the evening. I will be there an hour before the guests arrive. And this is corporate and weddings, by the way. And I'll be there to the very end. And I insist it with corporate too, even if I'm not paid to the end. Because I will create lasting connections that will last a lifetime. I think the one thing that a lot of people want for their events, weddings and corporate, is they want people to talk about it. Why put on a $25,000 event, $50,000, $100,000 event, if the ROI in terms of memories is almost zero? That, it just happened. So I bring a flavor and an energy to the event that is non-existent if you don't have the skills and talent that I bring to the table. But it's also like the small things too that people often forget about, particularly couples. You know, they're told well towards the end of their wedding planning journey, oh, you got to do a run sheet now. And they're like, what? Like, I'm an accountant. Like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, no, we got other weddings. Like, this meeting's over. And they freak out. And I understand it. Like, it's intense. But yet, because I've done, you know, hundreds of run sheets in my time, I'm like, yeah, no, I'll do it. I just do it for you. Done. And I go, well, plus that, I've got tons of games I can throw in there as well that make your audience really entertained. Oh, really? So we don't have boring moments? Yes, done. Whoop. Straight away in it goes as well. You know, so there's also just the general vendor coordination as well. The one thing that my couples really, really love, and also my corporate clients too, is they love not having to stress about anything on the day. And I know that there's a common tagline, you know, have a stress-free wedding. But I mean it sincerely they can just walk around. I love watching my couples just flit around the room and talking with all these different people. Maybe people come from overseas and all that kind of stuff. I don't have to bother them because I've got everything under control. Every vendor's bringing everything to me. The venues, everything's funneled directly back into me. Nothing happens unless I make it happen. And the only time I need to tap them on the shoulder is literally, hey, I just need you to take a seat because we're about to start those speeches. Oh, okay, great. Yep, we'll come back. It's great.
But doesn't that cross over a little bit to the event planner world? I mean, here in the States, I know that day of coordinators are a big thing right now. A lot of hotels are requiring it, have to have somebody there that's there literally from 8 a.m. until 1 a.m. I mean, it's a long ass day. So, but the way you just described it made it sound like that's you. No?
Yes, absolutely. And this might be a little controversial for your audience, but I would say that day of coordinators are an interesting thing in my mind. Don't get me wrong, I understand where they have a purpose before my role takes place. So for instance, if we're talking like an offsite ceremony, for instance, I'm not going to be there. Like, what do I need to be there for? This of course I was actually selling day of coordinator service, which I don't. But more importantly, when we get to the reception, I've worked with day of coordinators, and the first thing I tell them is, I said, look, respectfully, you're going to have the easiest night of your life. And they go, really? And I said, yeah, because everything's going to naturally funnel back to me anyway. Plus my planning is ensured that it will, not because I'm an egotistical moron. It's because naturally it has to flow with me. I'm the voice on the microphone. I'm the one that's going to be activating each of the moments that take place. So naturally it will gravitate towards the most enigmatic person in the room to make things happen. So I suggest a compromise, a bit of a parlay. I suggest that a better solution is to have a day of coordinator do everything from the lead up in the morning. Absolutely. I want to be asleep at 8 o'clock. I don't need that. This is the earliest I've been up in ages. But like, you know, I would argue, like, have them for like the 8 o'clock to have that support, right? Have them all the way through to the reception. do a bit of a handover, make sure the entrance is done correctly with the day of coordinator. And then guess what, day of coordinators? If you've got a good MC, you can go home and you can have a sleep. And it's
Oh
great.
yeah, no, we never go home. Let me just put it that way. We never go home because I'm telling you right now, if we are off site, somebody has to make sure that tent comes down. So
Fair enough, of course.
Yeah,
well, you know what? Sit up, have a drink, enjoy yourself, know that the MC's got it covered.
I was
and look,
about
don't
to
get me
say,
wrong. I mean it more comedically, but in more actuality, I have a great time when I work with day of coordinators because what happens is that it's just an extra pair of eyes and ears that I need on the day anyway. And so particularly for bigger weddings, we're talking over 250 people. It's awesome to have like a situation where I can say, hey, can you just go deal with that thing over there? I'm just going to go and like deal with this thing. And we can really tag team it out. So it's really, really good. But essentially you're bringing another really highly qualified, skilled person who's also going to be actually executing those moments to work tandem with a day of coordinators. So the vision is just going to be immaculate at the end of the day.
Marcy?
When you have a client that is using a full-time wedding planner, a full-service wedding planner, at what point do you come into the game? At what area of the process do you come in and coordinate with the planner?
That's a great question. Yeah. So planners actually make my life easier because then I don't have to do the run sheets, which is great. So I do, there is a point, yes, where I will come into it. So essentially, usually my planning process starts around the 2-month mark out. So 8 weeks out is usually a good volume for me. Some couples want a bit earlier, but I find at 2 months, they've got all their ducks in a row, right? Mostly. So I will then reach out to the planner and say, hey, it's time to start thinking about it. What's your sort of, have you got like a draft run sheet in mind? Is this, do you want to have a meeting?
Run sheet, do you mean timeline?
Oh yeah, we say run sheet.
Okay,
yeah.
I was like
run of show,
run of show.
The day of.
Yeah, so timeline. We call them timelines. Yeah, so we have a timeline that breaks it all down. But I mean, they're basically the same. Run of show is for more corporate, and timelines are more weddings. So,
sorry, no, we just call them run sheets here. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's perfect. I love it. That's
I
perfect.
forgot to put my US to AU translator on. I'll have to keep remembering. I haven't lost all the American phrases yet. I used to live in LA, so I had to know it at some point.
Right. No,
no, it's a great question. So yeah, we essentially will. I mean, I will come in around that 2-month mark. We'll have a meeting. We'll confer. I will say, look, I'm not here to step over your toes. I'm not going to be sending out separate run sheets or anything like that or timelines. But what I will do is I will usually I'll like, for instance, like last week I had a meeting where we basically just got on Zoom. We had a live doc and we said, right, she's like, what do you want? Like, what's sort of like, what's your vision? And I go, right, here, And it was great because she was like, oh yeah, these will work. That's no worries. Oh, that one, hang on. Did you know about this thing that's going on? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. Yep. Nope. Swap that, do this. And it was fantastic. Within about 25, 30 minutes, we had run sheet done for the evening. It was fantastic. And we could just move on. Now the couple can say yes or no, and we can confer from there. And it was a really quick process. There was a lot of respect that was built between us. There's a synergy because we're both getting what we want out of the evening in terms of our creative input to the night.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a great showtime. So I love working with planners because, there's a lot more information that gets put my way. Nothing gets missed. And typically, I'm able to, they still are, I respectfully come into the process not with a way that says, hey, I'm not going to overstep your toes. But I do love being able to have that input. And I've always felt respected. There's not been a planner I've ever not working with.
So I always felt like, the MC is like the face of the event, the planner behind the scenes. I don't want to be the person that has to go up to the microphone because I'm probably dealing with another fire elsewhere. I've got, drunk bridesmaids. I am actually, I'm very good at emceeing if I have to, but it's because of the show type of thing. We've gotten used to it being in front of people. But, the thing is, I'm dealing with drunk brides. I'm dealing with somebody trying to get in a fight with each other. I'm dealing with bartenders who are trying to cut somebody off. I don't have time to be the person on the front, right? That person needs to be happy, joyous, focused, not stressed out, right? I need you to be the personality of the event and let me be behind the scenes dealing with people. I mean, that's how I usually break it up with the MC.
Very true.
And then we work in tangent.
And not a cousin or a relative who's going to get up and say something that's inappropriate.
Oh, how do you deal with that? So if somebody is making the worst speech ever. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like, and that has happened a couple of times.
And you
I
go-
mean, I actually had a father of a bride
Hmm.
was so awful during his speech that the couple literally got up and left the room.
Oh,
They
wow.
left the room,
Oh.
and he didn't even notice because he had his ass towards them the whole time.
Mm,
And so
mm.
everybody started laughing in the audience, and of course the dad thought that was cue for even more. it
Oh,
was
wow.
awful. And so, but you know, they didn't have an MC. How does an MC deal with that kind of BS?
So two parts actually, and the first point's actually going to sound a little weird, but I'll explain it. By actually, in virtue of having an MC that's professional, that's not part of the family, that can be that's a separate sort of authority and entity to the family, actually has a really profound impact on the way that a wedding and an event goes. Because essentially, what happens is if you have a friend or a family doing it, you feel like as whoever's got the microphone, because microphone is power, full stop.
Yep.
And
100%.
so if the family member, the cousin or whoever, or the friend or whatever has the microphone, you all feel like you're kind of controlling your own party, like you're guiding it's like a choose your own adventure kind of sort of style wedding. And it's not conducive to at all in terms of control, authority, keeping things in check. But people also will behave differently. And I mean, in a good way, when you have someone like me who you just kind of go, oh, hang on, they're the ones. Because we should be establishing authority. So they go, okay, yes, back to you, because they feel guilty about it.
Right.
So just on virtue of having us, that's going back to your original question about the value proposition, that is a massive part of it. Just on virtue of having us, we have a huge impact. But secondly, I'm there, there's a bad speech going on. It's a really tricky situation because my rule is this: unless there's something that is overtly really abusive or downright dangerous going on in terms of someone's presentation on stage,
Right.
Unfortunately, as the fun guy, as the guy that's not meant to be policing things and instead keeping things fun, light, and energetic and happy, it's actually really tough for me to have to go up and be like, sorry, mate, like, yeah, we just find you boring. Like, we're done. It's because I know that person will hate me for the rest of their life, right? And so everyone else in the room might be going, "Oh, thank God!" But the problem is that person, I've ruined their entire evening. And I'm not someone that they know. So it sounds counterintuitive. People are like, yeah, but I say this, I say, look, to be honest, it's your family. You're the one that have to deal with it. Like,
it's true.
You know, it's. I've had this situation where I've had someone go for 45 minutes, and they're all like, they kind of looking at me.
45 minutes. Oh,
it's
no.
It's your dad. Like, this is your dad, not mine. I didn't invite him to speak.
I've done that. I've turned down their mic volume and turned up the music did it at a very Emmy Award kind of moment. Like, you know, the only thing I was missing is that the microphone went down in the floor. So, oh yeah,
standing off in the corner going.
Yeah, I mean,
you're not getting it.
Oh my God. I mean, I've flashed flashlights at people. I've oh yeah, I've done it all. So I totally get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But usually by that point,
tough.
they're so drunk that they don't remember.
Also, that's also poor planning, I think, sometimes in terms of where couples want like their speeches to go. So I often will split. If my rule is basically when I'm putting together a timeline, it's if they're doing more than 4 speeches, I'll split them up into 2 groups, and I'll make sure I tuck the first group, usually off bridal table, meaning, you know, fathers and mothers and uncles and sisters and stuff. Put them first in the first block after the entrees or appetizers. Remember that again. You guys say entrees is dinner.
I love the
and then so the first course, let's say first course. So first course, I put them immediately. Good buffer, say 15-20 minutes after that, and then when the bigger dish comes out and the second course, then after the vendors have eaten, I will then put the second group there. So basically getting them done as earlier as possible rather than later. They're also the most boring part of the night. So I tell my couples, I say, I want them over and done with for your sake, because no one cares. I have so many people come up to me and saying, hey, when's my speech? Particularly the best man who's like absolutely crapping his pants. And I'm like, don't worry, it's coming up. And, you know, and so they love it when I say, yeah, your speech is this time. They go, oh, good, because then I can get on the drink. So they typically appreciate it when things have been done earlier. So keeping your speeches to like 9 o'clock when, you know, you're finishing at 10:30 or something, no one wants that. I go, but people say, oh, but then people will just leave. I go, well, they're gonna leave if they think they're having not a good time, and I don't do boring weddings, so I think we're gonna be good. So it's happy days, you know. So
So
that's
you
good.
know, obviously, I'm listening to your accent. I'm loving your accent, and of course, here it's an accent. And if you came up here to do a wedding, people would be totally gravitating towards.
Oh, I know from my
right?
cruise ship time, I know it was
Right?
being the token Aussie was fantastic.
And I'm assuming Americans, if you go down there, they'd be like, okay, you sound like an idiot, or they really love you. And
No, we love you guys. It's all
right.
good.
But I mean, does that help in the long run? And many times, like if you're dealing with an audience that's not from Australia, I'm assuming, but
Yeah.
overseas, so to speak, does that help? Do you lean into that accent a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. There is. Look, I mean, speaking from my cruise ship time, having worked with 40 plus nationalities, both from perspective of guests and crew, it definitely does. You got to play to your strengths. You know, there are certain things that I could get away with just because I had the larrikin Australian accent, versus, for instance, someone who's from the UK. There's certain jokes that they couldn't do, and there's certain things they can do. I found that Americans are the same, Canadians. There's different things you can get away with that certain other cultures and accents you can't get away with, just simply because of the perceptions, the cultural perceptions of how those things come across. So, for instance, as an example, all my love to people in the UK, but there are certain jokes, for instance, that people take people from the UK a bit more seriously because of their tone. And so if you say something, I mean, sarcasm doesn't really go down well in North America.
It doesn't.
No,
it's
it doesn't at all.
Yeah.
I got away with a little bit, but it was more like the cheeky Australian as opposed to and I had to really find that line. It took me a number of years to really find it.
Right.
But certainly I learned very early on that sarcasm wasn't the best strategy. But if a UK person did it, wow, the complaints would come through the roof because they would think that they're being actually callous about it. For me, it was more just like, we want to like you, but yet you were sarcastic and mean to us. Like, what's going on? We don't get it. Like, it was not as harsh of a criticism, but it certainly didn't allow me to connect with the audience. But I found it more of a slapstick laissez-faire style way of approaching the stage in the US. And also the Jerry Springer, what I call, just point and shoot and say, make some noise and people go crazy. That was always something that really worked well. And I found that more off the hand comments that people, the really attentive people that were listening to, I was able to then really draw different parts of the audience who were listening to different things that I was saying. And I found that mostly the North American crowd just love having the attention brought back to them. So I would constantly find ways to bring people from the audience into the experience so that they felt really immersed. Whereas Australians can often be an insight into our culture. We take a lot longer to get our engines turning. People think we're just we're 0 to 100 in a minute, but actually that's not the case. We need probably at least a few hours to get some drinks in to feel, because we're a bit socially conservative in that way. So we find ourselves having to really warm up to the occasion. Whereas I've had a wedding once actually where I had a whole bunch of people from Texas. The bride was from there, and it was a whole bunch of other states too. So it's fantastic. So half the night I was translating, what some of the words were going on and stuff like that. They had she actually had a whole setup. She had what's the backup bridal party you guys have? What's that called again? There's two bridal parties you have. You have the main one, then you have your backup one. What's it called?
What?
Again?
We have a backup bridal party. What? Junior bridesmaids?
Or something?
I'm sure people are screaming at the TV right now. I don't know. There's I have to get the. I wish I.
Maid of honor and bridesmaids. Are you talking about that hierarchy?
The core group you have, and then there's
Okay.
the second backup who are meant to help with everything, but they aren't part of the bridal party.
Oh, well, most weddings here have a maid of honor and then a best man, right?
Yep.
Those are the two main, and then they have bridesmaids and groomsmen.
Mm-hmm.
And so the bridesmaids and groomsmen are kind of your second tier kind of thing.
Oh,
Your maid of
okay.
honor,
We
your
just
best
call them
man are your
wedding
first
party.
tier. Yeah.
Oh, she's
And then you have
explaining
junior
something.
bridesmaids and junior
Right.
groomsmen. And those
Yeah.
are younger people
little
that are
ones.
usually 18 or below.
Yeah, no, not what I'm referring to. I mean, that's all the same here as well. Anyway, I'll come to it. I'll send you an email. I'll be like, oh, that's what
I
it was.
know. I'm really fascinated
I'm
about
interested.
this. I mean, I so badly want to Google this shit right. Oops, this stuff right now. But
She did this whole like, it was so funny to watch. Like she did the like the sorority thing where she had him on the she had him sitting down and all the girls came out and did the whole clapping thing. All the Australians were like, what the hell is going on right now? It was so funny to watch.
Maybe
It was
it's
one
a
of the best
Texas
things
thing.
ever. I do line dancing
Texas.
at weddings and stuff. It's one of my biggest things that I often do. And it was so great. She was like immediately, oh, wow, I can't wait to do this. And I was teaching them like the footloose and all these other different dances that I haven't done in years because I was doing them so often overseas. So we did that. We did like the wobble. We did like the Cupid shuffle. Like all these ones Australians are like, these are actually really good. And I'm like, yeah, like here's a party for you. It was such a great vibe. It was so nice to have Americans in my crowd because I miss them a lot.
I know we're a little rambunctious, this group up here. We're a little rambunctious as Americans. I know we like to live large and it's so funny because I actually the first time I ever got that experience is I went over to Europe for like 3 months and was hanging out and got totally immersed in the thing. And then I came back and everything was so big and loud and oh my God. I went, holy crap, this is exactly what we look like. Oh my God. I mean,
you guys are fun. No, I honestly have so many fun memories of my time on cruise ships. You know, having a lot of fun and like it was actually a real big shock to have to come back and do the opposite of what you experienced, where I had, you know, because I was not working in Australian waters. So when I came back and I started doing pub trivia shows before I then built my business, I knew there was differences. Don't get me wrong. I didn't have zero contact with Australian audiences in my time on cruise ships, but it was certainly, it was confronting, like having to build a business and then like knowing that I had to really strongly adapt and morph into someone that'd be more appropriate to Australian audiences rather than American audiences. And it was kind of like a little bit of a lost part of my soul. I was like, I miss just having audiences that are just like, you know, 0 to 100.
They're right there with you. You're like, boom.
But it's okay. I always tell my couples I'll get the audiences in the end. And, you know, by the time I get to the end, grandma's up there and everyone's like, oh, I've never seen a dance like this in years. And she just had a hip replacement. Like, yeah, you go, grandma. Like, you know. So.
What is it? Oh, sorry, Marcia, you first.
Sorry. So if in your area in Australia, do they have like couples now, because sometimes they're, you know, depending on their age, they may have like a lot of a lot in their wedding party who they want to have speak. And obviously there's only so much time that you would want them to do it on the wedding night or the wedding day, you know, after the wedding, you know, after the ceremony. Do you find that they're doing these types of things the night before the celebration so that it kind of is more of an intimate crowd?
Speeches.
You mean like actually making speeches to a group of people?
And do you also limit on the day of? Do you also give people an idea of how much time they have to speak so that it kind of keeps them, you know, on track?
That I do. But so to answer the first question, no, that's not happening very often at all, if not ever. People are here usually using the ceremony as the time to do that. So they want it to be on the video. They want it to be a part of the whole reception. That being said, you are right. There is that fear of, you know, like some people wanting 6, because certain cultures, for instance, like particularly when my background's Italian Maltese. So European cultures love to talk.
Indian.
It's why I do what I do.
Indian cultures love to talk. I mean, there's actually competition among people in Indian families about who's going to get the bigger laugh and who's going to be able to talk the lot.
Yep, true. Yes. No, so I do a lot of Indian weddings too. Yep, absolutely, Keith, you're correct. And so it's what I tell my couples, to answer your second question, Marcy, is that I tell people, I say, you need to just drum them in day after day after day that they must not speak for more than 5 minutes. Because the first time you hear that, they go, yeah, whatever. Okay, cheers, thanks. Then the second time, they'll be like, oh, all right, I didn't know it was that big of a deal for you. But after you've told them 10 times, it definitely seeps in a lot more. And I say you have to nag them because people will go rogue. It's funny. I have so many who will like, they will swear that they've told them. And I go, yeah, I still think we're not budging enough time for this, because they're like, oh, I just want to pack everything until we get the dance floor. And I go, yeah, but we need these buffers. They go, no, just scrap the buffers you got in there. They're only going to talk for 2 minutes. And I go, there is no speech on the planet that I've ever had that goes consistently for 2 minutes. It just won't. By the time I do the intro, which is not long, I get them up, they come to the microphone, they go, is this thing on? Okay, hi everybody. By the time you've done that, that's a minute and a half already gone anyway. So like, it's not going to happen. So I say, just swear to them that they must only stick to 5 minutes, otherwise you won't be friends and family ever again. Like, and that usually then instills the fear of God into them to do it. I've got a bride coming up this weekend, I should say, and lovely girl, was so excited. She's so pumped for this. It's a Arabic Irish wedding, so make sense. But it's fantastic because it's got so much going on in the night. It's gonna be so great. And she's like, "Oh no, I want all the speeches done right up 5." And I go, "Okay, are you sure?" She goes, "No, I want them all, and I only need 20 minutes for that." And I go, "Well, I don't recommend that." And she goes, No. I will. She was joking, but I'm going to have a BB gun sitting underneath the table, and I will shoot them all to tell them to get off stage. I'm like,
she's from Texas.
Okay,
she is definitely from Texas. Yeah. I'm just saying.
So I'm like, okay, I love that, because then she's following what I said. Extremely tell people, make it happen, make it quick, get off the stage. I love that.
Oh, love that too. Oh my God. So I wanted to find out a little bit more about your cruise ship, because obviously we're winding towards the end of it, but what is life like for an MC on a cruise ship? Because I've heard some horror stories about like only getting like 3 hours at a time, and that your day is all split up and you have to get up super early, and then you get to sleep for like 2 hours mid-morning. You run
from place to place.
Is that all true?
Mostly, depending on how people perceive it. But I mean, look, I'll break it down this way. It's all about how if you're the right person, then the cruise industry is just the most amazing place to be. The first time I stepped on board a ship was January 3rd, 2015 in Los Angeles in San Pedro Port. I'm the Grand Princess, which is now sailing around here in Australia. And it felt like home. It was just what I dreamed of becoming for so long since a 14-year-old child, that I was like, I have to do this. I must do this. And being in that environment for me personally was really inspiring and uplifting. And it just felt like it was home. But look, if it's not for you, then look, I'll put it to you this way. Fort Lauderdale, to really bring it to home for you guys, Fort Lauderdale is some of the earliest turnaround times that we have across the fleet, because you must get up. I would have to be in position if it was turnaround day and I was responsible for doing the disembarkation process.
Yeah,
I was up. I think I had to be alarm going off like 4:45 to be in position by 5:15, fully dressed, bushy-eyed, brush teeth, everything, hair done. It was awful, right? And then you had to go for I think it took to about 10 o'clock to be fully disembarked, and you had to be in position all that time. There was no other, you're not going anywhere else. That's your position. And then we'd have a hour and a half break. So we quickly jump in to have some food. And then we'd be right back into embarkation, where we on the gangway saying hi to everybody that are coming on board for about 2.5 hours. Then you have a small break, then you do drill, and then you do sail away party, and then you go into to the evening events as well. And then you're not finishing in Fort Lauderdale, particularly in the high season. You're not, because then you're doing like welcome aboard parties and stuff in the nightclub. So you're not finishing till about 11:30, 12. And that's just turnaround day, right? Now, that's an extreme version of it, in the sense that that's a really long day for turnaround day if you are on for that day.
We have a lot of 3-day and 4-day cruises. That would suck.
Yes. Talk to anybody in the industry that has, particularly Carnival's known for doing those 3-4-day cruises.
Yeah.
Anyone that gets those rotations, like, they really do question their life choices. But look, it's a job of passion. At the end of the day, I used to love getting to know people. I used to love, being in the nightclub and dancing with passengers and getting to just be a part of their experience, doing the game shows, and having people at the end of the cruise say, you really made this a cruise that we remembered, particularly knowing as well that in the States, unfortunately, you guys don't get a lot of free time and time off. And it's people, I've met people who tragically it was their first time off in 10 years. And there was a lot more pressure in the States when I was working there to compared to when you do cruises down here in Australia, or perhaps even the UK, where we get a lot more time off. There was a sense of, this has to be perfect. And I had no problem meeting that challenge. Like, I love making sure that and that's kind of why I love weddings and corporate events now too, because it has to be perfect. But there was a real responsibility for that to be possible. And so it was a challenge for me every day within those 7 days, 14 days, whatever it may have been, to really make sure every day count, every interaction counted. And anyone thinking about doing it, it's one of the greatest things you can ever do in your life. You meet so many people. The crew parties are amazing. And you know, you get to see some really cool places too. You know, the Caribbean, for instance, you know, is fantastic. I got a lot of fun memories, even just sailing out of Fort Lauderdale. There's particularly, a lot of your audience will know this. There's a particular part in the inlet where you go out from Fort Lauderdale, and there's a particular set of apartment buildings that
Yes,
love
two
the
big
cruise
buildings.
ships.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And everybody's waving.
And they
Everybody's
got
waving.
there's these two people actually that have these giant hands, these big giant white
Yes,
hands. They'll be
really?
waving
They
those.
do.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And they still do it.
Yep,
They
every
still do
single
it.
day that they
Oh
go
my
out.
God, it's
Yeah.
incredible. It
One
is
of them
really
actually was
incredible.
even gifted a princess flag, which is really cool, actually. So we have like our own flag that obviously goes on the mast of our vessels in the bow. And one particular apartment was so like in love with princess that corporate actually sent them one of those, and so they always hang that out when a princess ship goes past, and they love it because the princess ships have the Love Boat theme, so the captains go do 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 like constantly.
Oh, I love
It's a real
that.
vibe. I love it. It's one of the only cruise ship ports in the world where you can still make lots of noise for sail away parties. You can still have a great time. The locals still actually really appreciate it and they get involved, as opposed to many ports around the world now with lots of noise restrictions. You have to wait till you get out into out to sea and stuff to really have a party. So it's I do miss those days. Those days were some of the greatest days of, like, you just in there going, this is my life and I love it and it's fantastic. So
I love this. So if people want to get a hold of you, and well, let's and actually let me back that up. If somebody from the States wants to hire you, obviously they need to cover your expenses for travel on top of your fee, correct? Right? And is it an additional fee to be, because obviously it's a 18-hour trip, I think, it's from the US to there.
Depending, if it was in LA, it's 13. I know
Yeah.
that well because I've done that
Right.
trip a lot when I was living there.
And then
And then the
another
extra
5 hours.
5 if I wanted to go across, yeah. But look, I'm so used to travel, like it's been part of my soul. So like I tell people that if your wedding's in Antarctica, you just got to pay for the travel and I'll be there. So it's of course I have my base rate and then of course travel, but I don't like to stick exorbitant fees or it's my travel tax or anything like that. I don't like to make money off the travel. I don't believe in that. I think that if I'm going to make my money, it's going to be off the base rate and what I believe on my craft is worth. So
Right.
yeah, but I would adore being in front of an American crowd once more. It was what I did for many years, and the parties you guys have are insane. The production value of your weddings are next level, and it's the stuff that I love working with. And when I get a little bit of that here, when I have like a couple, like I had recently, where they have like a lighting package and they have the audio team and they have all the production, and I'm like, okay, great, and I'm able to coordinate it because I do stage management. I understand how all this all works. When I can craft something like that, I love it so much. So it would be my absolute pleasure to be invited over.
Love it. And then how do people find you? So we've been running the little ticker tape below. So we've got your Instagram and your website, but say it again for our listeners, because we do have a podcast version of this. How would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so easiest way to get a hold of me is just simply through my website at Nathan Cassar, CASSAR.com.au. And don't forget the .au, although I do believe there's a redirect in for .com. And I did buy it, so you can't take it, sorry. And you're welcome to go check out my past work on there. I'm also on YouTube, Nathan Cassar _MC, and you can see all my past work. I've got all my videos on my site anyway. On Instagram, I'm Nathan Cassar _MC as well. And would love to connect with you. Just start a conversation. I know it's going to be a little weird to begin with, thinking not going with someone local, but I would like, as you mentioned earlier, Keith, that there is sort of an exoticism, I guess, with the accent, but more importantly, like, it is an audience. North America is a place that I really do understand. As I said, I used to live there, and I really do appreciate the amount of years that I spent with that audience. So it's an area of the world that I would love to come back and perform. It'd be a very full circle moment for me. But more importantly, I just love to be able to bring really bespoke experiences that your guests are just really going to talk about. And that's not just limited to weddings, of course, corporate events as well, particularly conferences or awards nights or anything else in between that you think really needs that extra touch that you just maybe not getting from some of your local suppliers, or perhaps you're just like, I don't know, let's just try something new. I would genuinely really love to start that conversation. So yeah, send me an email, send me
let's see what we can do, man.
yeah.
Let's see if we can make this happen. Nathan, thank you again. This was excellent.
Thank you. Great
I mean, I had
information here.
such a good time talking to you.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. I
It
appreciate
is
it.
obvious that you love what you do, and you're obviously a
I
people
do.
person. So, if you're out there and you're looking for an MC, I'm telling you, worth the expense, guys. Worth the expense. All right, excellent. All right, so we're going to wrap up today, and then we'll be back next Tuesday at 2:00. But for now, we're going to say goodbye.
Bye.